You're listening to Quantum Revenue Expansion with your host, Ursula Mentjes. Let's go.
Because we talk a lot about price versus value, especially you. Like this comes up a lot on our coaching calls when people get stuck on how much should I charge? What's my value? And it is, you're right. It's like, and at the end of the day, it is about deservability. Do I deserve to receive the amount of money that I know I'm worth? Like, and how do you put that on? Especially in the non-tangible world, like coaching and training and all those things. Because services. In the coaching world, you can see someone who charges $50 a session and someone else who would never sell you one session. Like we're in that boat. We don't sell by one session, all the way to, people that, like really, really big names in the industry who might charge you 7 figures a year for email coaching, right? So it's like all over the board. So for someone who's really struggling with price versus value and how much they should charge, what would you say to them? Like, how would you help them quantify what they should do?
There's a lot of ways to do it. I think the first thing is look for a similar service or product in the market and really look at like where the spectrum is. I think it's interesting because like if you take a car, I can go buy a Kia for 15 grand or I can go buy a Land Rover for 120. And the truth is there's really no difference between those two cars. Technically, like I get in it and it takes me somewhere. Right. It's the experience I have in those cars, or it's how I value the money, right? Like, so if status is really important to me and like heated leather seats that massage me and a 17 speaker stereo system, like, there's nothing wrong with that. There's no judgment about that, but like, that's how I put value in that car versus like, maybe I live in a walkable city and I don't drive very much. And so I don't want to pay $1,200 car payment for something that sits in the garage and I don't really care about status. Like, so then that Kia is super valuable to me. And we just forget, that's why it's so important to know who your client is, because then you'll get the value of what they want. Right. And so get really clear on like the problem you're solving for people, and then go see like, what are people charging for that in this spectrum of what you do that. Right. And you might be a Camry, you might be like right in the middle. Great. But you can't just throw an arbitrary number. I have some people that are like, well, my time's worth $1,000 an hour. Well, no one's going to pay me $1,000 an hour to coach them, because like, what is really the tangible if I spend 1 hour? Then what are you going to do? I'm going to drop a ton of knowledge bombs, but maybe you can't implement. So that's why we don't sell hour per hour, or just only do one-on-one coaching versus the other. The right people that we're looking for, they value the different modalities of us bringing a group together, having unlimited email access to us, or, doing one-on-ones or doing labs, like however we develop that. And so now when we're like, hey, it's this much money, like that's not a big deal to us. And a lot of times for our clients, when we explain what the value is of what we're giving them, it's not a big deal for them either. And so it's really just finding that chemistry between you and your target market, being very clear on what the value proposition is and being able to communicate that. Because money is just the tangible part of the transaction. It's the saying yes and being like, oh, I can get my needs met, or I can get this problem solved if I do this. And of course I'm going to spend the money.
Yeah. It's interesting.
Most people have cell phones.
Right. I know. Can you imagine, would we ever have thought we'd pay $1,000 for a cell phone? No.
Ridiculous.
So here's the thing, like, this is interesting what you're saying, because when I think about our clients now that are coming to the CEO table, many of them expected to pay a lot more than it actually is. Like I can almost see the relief on their faces. And then I'm like, maybe we're not charging enough for that. No, I'm just kidding. We do. I mean, we do have different levels. So if someone works with us privately now, that's a different level. But for clients who are coming into our CEO table, they're like relieved. So that tells me that's because exactly what you said. Like we've nailed solving their problem, and they also know that they're going to get a return on investment. So for many of you who sell services, like what's the cost for your client if they don't move forward with you?
Yeah.
And then what's the potential of their return on investment when they do move forward? And as Rebekah said, getting really clear on how you communicate that and the questions you ask them, so that as you're in that sales process, they understand, like they can make the decision. Because selling is never about convincing. We talk about that at Sales Camp and ad nauseum, right? It's not about convincing anybody. It's about coaching them through a process so that they can make a decision to go with your product or service or not. And it's really up to them. And that takes the pressure off.
Thank you for joining us today. And if you are ready to make your next quantum leap, let's do it. Ursula invites you to join us at the 2X Intensive. Go to salescoachnow.com/apply. Don't forget to leave us a review on your favorite podcast app.